Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. In Season 2 of Hacks and Hobbies, we're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life. We want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. In this episode, I get to speak with my good friend, Carey Ransom. I got to work with Carey over 10 years ago at one of our favorite companies, WebVisible, and we all left and did great things. And I'm happy to say that I've been in connection with a lot of the people that I worked with at WebVisible. And Carey had a really amazing role at WebVisible. And since then, he has done some really amazing work in the local business. And he's just creating some really long-term value because we, as marketers and as companies, and as human beings, we want instant gratification, but then we forget about what it takes for that overnight success. And Carey has, and from my perspective, has done some of these amazing things. So I'm really happy to bring Carey onto the podcast. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Junaid. So great to hear your voice and reconnect. It's been far too long.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't even know where to start. I mean, you started with your professional career as I would like to say into sales, or was it more into commerce? I mean, tell us a little bit about the beginnings and then the middle and then, where we are today.
Sure. So I grew up in a family business, so I kind of got to do everything from a really young age. Mm-hmm. And, I like to say I learned everything I know about business from my father, my grandfather growing up, really alongside them in a multi-generational business. And we were in retail. So I had to figure out how to sell because people were coming in some cases, making a decision on whether to buy or not, or what to buy. Mm-hmm. So I also had to be good at problem solving. We had a hardware store, and I had to quickly learn when somebody came in with the parts from underneath their kitchen sink in their hands, that I had to help them try and figure out how to piece it back together or figure out what was broken. And so it really taught me that I needed to help lead people, help them solve problems, and really be a face of the family and a face of the business. Because we were in a community, and that community had been there for a long time. We'd been in that community for a long time, and how we made people feel, how we treated them, if it was good, they were probably going to come back. If it wasn't good, they were probably going to tell a bunch of other people, and that was not going to be good for us over a long period. And so we were very involved in the community, and I just got that all embedded in me really, really early on. And that has stuck with me through a whole host of places and seasons of life that I've been through. And so I got into to business, and I decided to go work for a really large company right out of college. Mm-hmm. And I ended up deliberately taking a role in sales, although I wouldn't say it was specifically sales. It was really more customer relationship management, because I was working with a company called Procter & Gamble. We had a whole bunch of really well-known household brands. Mm-hmm. And the stores that we were working with really didn't have a choice whether to carry those brands in their store. They were in almost all cases spending far less on marketing than P&G was. Yeah. And so if a consumer came into their retail store and they didn't have Tide, or they didn't have Bounty paper towels or Crest toothpaste, they probably were leaving and going somewhere else. And so it was an interesting initial experience in where leverage and negotiation and relationship building can be, because in some cases they resented the fact that P&G was better known, or the brands were better known than their store. And so that was really fascinating. And I just didn't see a long-term excitement in that business. And I was really lured by technology. I'd played around with computers as a kid. I felt like soap and paper and these kinds of categories were interesting from how brands were built and stories were told. But I was really of the belief that technology was going to have an increasing impact in changing the world and how we did things.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be a part of that. And so I had to talk my way into a job in a software company. And so I decided to join a software company. And the logical role was to be in sales because I had a sales-like role. So I tried to get into several software companies. I finally talked one into hiring me and did that and really had fun with it. And I think, what I really started to learn there is you kind of eat what you kill. And it was on me. It was a pretty small company. I was on an island by myself. The company was based in Seattle. And they were launching a new product that was fairly unclear how they were going to go to market. And there were a handful of us spread around the country. And I had to really figure out how to do the entire, what I'll call go to market. So I had to create the marketing strategy. How was I going to identify who my ideal contacts and prospects were? What was the value proposition of why they were going to be willing to meet with me to even consider doing this? And what was the return on investment if I could actually successfully sell them? And it took some experimentation. The first several months were pretty tough. And I did things like set up my own direct mail campaigns and did a lot of things to try to figure out how I could get some leverage, how I could get some efficiency and scale. And this is, over 20 years ago, when a lot of these things just weren't systems, and we didn't have a lot of the tools and technology that we now have to even help people with that as a small business. But I was almost a small business within a little bit bigger software company, and started to have some success and started sharing some of these practices with some of my colleagues in other parts of the country. And the company started to have some success, and that ended up leading to another job at another company. And, just as I learned from the first one, it got me excited about other things I might be able to do. And that's what, led me to sort of pick my head up and look at another opportunity where I could do more, grow more, et cetera.
Yeah.
And, did that. And then all of a sudden the .com crash hit in the early 2000s. And the company that I was in, I could tell was going to probably struggle for a while.
Yeah.
So I decided to actually finally move to California. I'd wanted to go to California for a long time, and I didn't really have the entry point. And I used business school, grad school, as an excuse to move there. And so I thought that the economy was probably going to struggle for a couple of years after that .com crash. That would be a good time for me to kind of wait out the downturn and figure out what did I want to do next. And so I moved to California, joined UCLA as a grad student, and got my master's. And during that time, I decided to actually stay in technology. A lot of my classmates were going into areas like real estate and consulting and banking, but I really had that bug for technology and wanted to be around that. And so I found a startup software company that ended up bringing me to Orange County because it was based there. And that was really the first of a whole series of technology companies that I've been involved with here in Orange County over the last 15 years. And what a lot of them have given me the opportunity to do is to come in, really help, in most cases, help a founder or founders really start to figure out the business and start to grow and scale that business. And I've been able to, in many cases, invest in those companies,
Yeah.
as well as join them at a formative stage and be part of that growth team as a company goes through that early to mid stage growth, and
Yeah.
have even now been through some scenarios where we've exited companies and moved on. And so I've sort of seen the entire cycle several times. And I think that's now put me into a place where I can be a really helpful advisor
Yeah.
and executive to founders, because I've been through so many companies, either
Mm-hmm.
hands-on in the trenches as an advisor, as a board member, as an investor, that I have a pattern recognition that's higher than most people probably get in their career, because I've just done it at such a high velocity
Yeah.
over the last 20 years. And so I draw on those experiences daily. I try to remain uh, open-minded and humble about all the experiences I've had the benefit of having. And now I'm really starting to look at how do I provide the benefit of that experience to other entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
who are starting their journey, and how I can be as helpful and valuable to them along the way. And so continue to really want to be part, still love
Yeah.
the technology revolution, but I'm doing it now in a variety of different ways.
That's really amazing. And the one thing that I noticed, the first thing that like off the bat was like, because I look at, what have the people that I talk to, what environment were they brought up in, right? You growing up in an environment where, your parents, your grandparents running a business for over 100 years, right? So you automatically have this education without even going to school on
Mm-hmm.
how, that's a whole nother level of leg up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that puts you ahead of a lot of people who are just starting, just coming out of college and starting a business or running a company or starting a company, because they, went through the school system to do something that the school system doesn't teach you. Sure, you have to go to college to, they teach you, but it's not a real world experience.
That's a
And so,
great point.
right. So you had that early 10 years before you even go to college, before you even go to high school, all of the stuff that you're learning, it's now ingrained into you, and the way you look at things, right? Having that oversight, having that 10,000 foot view of how the world works or how systems work in place is really an amazing advantage. It's like they say, like Bill Gates was in the right space, right place at the right time, and having access to the right technology,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
enabled him to build the software for IBM that IBM was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nobody in that time had access to a mainframe computer. Even engineers that were working there only had like 4 or 5 hours per day, where Bill Gates here, he had 24 hours access to this computer that nobody else in the
Mm-hmm.
world, right?
That's right.
So,
That's right.
so, so looking at that and your journey, and how you were able to look at things, and having that 20 years of experience is monumental. But even starting, like even before that, you had 15 years of experience, dealing with customers, dealing with how to sell things, or how to solve people's problems. So that's really amazing.
Yeah, I definitely have not spent enough time, and I've spent a lot thinking
Mm-hmm.
about what were those experiences? How do I mean, I have 3 kids now,
Yeah.
and I've definitely contemplated how I can try to get them some of those early experiences,
Yeah.
because as much as there were times that I probably didn't want to go to work,
Mm-hmm.
I really value that. And, I learned things like not asking people to do jobs that you wouldn't do yourself. right? My
Yeah.
dad would do any job that was necessary. He,
Yeah.
just the pride of ownership. I was part of the family, so I felt like an owner, but
Yeah.
the way that people were treated that worked there, they were
Mhm.
treated as part of the family. They were
Yeah.
extended family. And
Yeah.
so it was definitely a familial environment. And I think that, led to people staying there for long periods of time. And we had people who had spent their entire career in the family business, and then their
Yeah.
kids spent their entire career.
Mm-hmm.
They were part of our family.
Yeah.
And I think that as a psychological way to work with and lead and manage people is a really powerful one, and not to be manipulative
Yeah.
with
Not
it,
at
but
all.
that it's a real, authentic, part of who I am. And I've just
Mm-hmm.
tried to keep that out in front
Yeah.
and be that. And, at times that hasn't fit the environment that I've been in. But I've been better over time
Mm-hmm.
in evaluating, not can I make this company be like me, but
Yeah.
can I, can I fit? Because fit in the culture, and creating the right kind of culture for the right company is so critical
Yeah.
to success. And, really nobody wants to be a part of something that's not successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt that they're trying to be part of something that can be really successful. But we all have our biases. We all have our blind spots. And, the more self-aware we are about our capabilities and our natural preferences and,
Yeah.
psychology, behaviors, the better we can put ourselves into positions where we can really be our best self,
Yeah.
and that's going to more likely be successful. And so I've gotten much better in over time in
Mm-hmm.
helping people with that, and even helping myself with that, and
Yeah.
holding myself responsible and saying, look, if I'm not in the right culture, if I'm not in the right role,
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something about that.
Yeah.
And as a leader, if other people aren't being their best self, aren't in the right company, in the right role, help them.
Yeah.
And not just push them out, but help them either understand, do they need to make some changes, or is there just a place that should be better for them?
Yeah.
And all those are all right, but our human potential is maximized when we're really in a place where we can grow and flourish. And that doesn't mean always, go pursue only your passion. I mean,
Yeah.
there's, I think I vacillate. Not all of our passions are meant to be our life's work.
No.
But, finding those opportunities for people to really be their best is where I find a tremendous amount of joy and satisfaction.
That's really cool. And having the authority or having that experience and being able to help, because like you mentioned earlier, you've seen it from every single angle, every single step of the way, what it takes to establish a company, what it takes to grow a company, what it takes to create that culture. So that that's really cool. I mean, are you writing a book?
I'm not.
Right. But I do.
I feel like all this has been written. I don't know that I
Yes,
have
that's
any
true. It's true.
unique perspective.
Yeah.
But I, certainly will validate that there's a lot of really great human wisdom and thinking out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that I'm still on a very deep learning journey
Mm-hmm.
about myself, about the world, about purpose. And that's what keeps me really excited and engaged. And I have a strong desire to keep making the world better. I just think
Yeah.
there's so many problems still. Each new idea, each new breakthrough is amazing, but also new problems arise every day that need to be solved. And so
Absolutely.
it's just we're just in such a dynamic world that I want to continue to be deeply in the middle of that.
Yeah. And I see that you are doing some of that with your podcast, Accelerate OC, right?
That's true. I'm trying to give a platform
Mm-hmm.
for the people that I admire or really am curious to understand more about them.
Yeah.
And the great work that they're doing in innovating or building the innovation community here in Orange County. And I
Yeah.
think as a community of 34 cities and 3+ million people,
Yeah.
we're not as well aware and connected as we could be. And so it's, my small little endeavor to try to create more visibility to some of the great business leaders and innovators in our community, and
Yeah.
use their stories to inspire others here to find their own passion to
Yeah.
pursue or contribution that they think they can make as we continue to evolve the community here, which is a very dynamic place, but also for many people, a very comfortable place.
Yes.
And I think that, in one respect, we need to be a little bit more urgent and motivated to be uncomfortable and keep it as dynamic as it has historically been.
Yeah. Nice. So when we talked about, having or giving opportunities or presenting opportunities to our children, like I have 3 kids too, right? And so I'm constantly, telling them, or teaching them or showing them, this is like, you've got to do the hard work. You've got to put in the time to be good at whatever it is that you embark on. If you want to play sports, you got to spend the time. You got to go to the practices. You got to do the work. And for example, I'm into videography, and I've got my kids shooting video now with their little cameras. I was like, when you're shooting video, you want to focus on what's the story that you're trying to tell. You don't be just rambling. Just tell a story that's gonna invite inquisition, or invite the, what's that word? Basically invite people to be interested in, what are you trying to share as a story? Because as human beings, we're all storytellers, and we all want to tell a good story that will, tell a moral, learn what's the lesson we're learning, what's the story about, and how can we be better humans and to our fellow man. And the one thing that resonated was how you had the access to, your grandfather and your father were running the business. And that's something that Robert Kiyosaki actually talks about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? He talks about, there's 2 different dad types. It's not that, they both worked hard or not, but one, there's different mindset that you can find that's going to take you to the next level or to the path that, you're trying to think. Because school systems are great, and they are designed for a specific purpose, and they need to be reinvented for this generation. And it was really interesting what he mentioned, Robert Kiyosaki's, you need to give your kids at 10 years old this book so they can learn the difference between what it is that they're going to be facing for the rest of their lives. So yeah,
fascinating.
It's really fast.
I haven't spent enough time talking with my father about how prepared and structured and deliberate he was in his parenting.
Yeah.
And it's a really significant job as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more than, certainly I view it as my most important job, and something I don't know that we often are well prepared for. And I sort of look at it as every day I feel like I'm figuring it out in each phase of my kids' lives. I'm just trying to stay a little bit ahead of them, but I'm grateful to have a really great partner who's been with me for a long time to do it with.
Exactly.
And I always feel like she's more natural at it than I am even, but I'm very blessed.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's important to have a good partner that covers our things that we're missing, right? They cover our faults, or they fill in the gaps that we're missing. And that's pretty amazing. One thing, Will Smith was saying to Trevor Noah on that interview, and he was like, what are you teaching your children? Because you've gone through such an amazing life, being so successful in so many different things. And I was like, well, I'll let them do what they want to do, because the things that I went through happened to me because I was in a certain place. But I want them to experience it on their own, so it's really like a very open mindset. It's like I don't tell them, like it's not a blueprint that you can follow, and it's different for everybody. So as parents, it's really, I guess, important. Well, not guess, but it's definitely important to have those opportunities presented to our children so they can be better than what our opportunities were, I guess. Yeah. So they can be successful in the future.
Yeah, the world's different, right? The world's different, will be different for them than it's been for us too. So I think far different in the next 20 years than the last 20 years have been.
I cannot even imagine where it's going to be, but I'm pretty excited for them.
Yes.
Right. I mean, the technology that we have access to, a lot of the things that we discover these days is, there's kids coming out of high school or coming out of college that don't own a driver's license or don't own a car because, well, they don't need to. Right. There's services like Uber and Lyft and Postmates can bring you food and it's just a totally different world, and where it's going next 10, 20 years, it's just amazing.
It is.
Well, Carey, this was really exciting talking to you, learning about your journey and how you were brought up, and what you've gone through over the years, and creating these opportunities for yourself and creating opportunities for others, and now in a space where you can help other small companies grow and advise them in what they need to do next. It's really cool. I do have.
Sinead. It's been super fun to join.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have some questions that I asked towards the end of my podcast, towards the end with my guests. What is one hobby that you wish you got into?
Surfing.
Oh, nice. I lived over 13 years in California, and I wish I'd learned surfing. I did do snow. I learned to snowboard in California.
That's good.
And when I lived in Colorado, I didn't go once to snowboard, which was really, really interesting. Like, the best snow is in Colorado, and I didn't go snowboarding, which is really cool. Really interesting. All right. Next question. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
I think my favorite, and partly because it sort of resurfaced again for me, is probably Seinfeld.
Oh, man. I love Seinfeld.
I still watch it. I still laugh. I've seen every episode multiple times, and it just hits my funny bone the right way.
Yeah, and every single time you watch it, it's like you've already seen the episode, and you already know what's going to happen. But every time they do those lines or go through the motion, you have that same laugh as you did the first time. I really like that about the show. All right, what movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
If I get to play a character, probably the movie Hoosiers.
Okay, Hoosiers.
Because it really speaks to where I came from, how I grew up. I love basketball. All of my kids play basketball. And the Hoosiers story is the quintessential David and Goliath story. And I would love to be the player on the team who hit the game-winning shot in Hoosiers. That would be a great character. Yes.
Nice. I like it. I'll have to go watch that movie because Gene Hackman's in it, and Barbara Hershey.
Dennis Hopper, Barbara Hershey. Yep.
Wow.
Right. Yeah, really good cast. Really good cast.
Yeah. Awesome. Next question. Who is your favorite superhero?
That is a good question. Probably would have to say Superman.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't have a really compelling reason, but I think that's probably my favorite.
Awesome. Well, he does bring that that family belonging and that moral compass, right?
Yeah.
He has that moral compass that, that other superheroes might not have it. I mean, it's really interesting because he got to grow up in a very normal world. So I don't know. I mean, there's probably a lot been said about Superman already. Last question. If you were a board game, what would it be?
Just because I enjoy it so much, probably too, but I would say Scrabble.
Okay, Scrabble.
Because it's a game where you're somewhat opportunistic. You're somewhat trying to live to play another day, play another round.
Yeah.
Each game is a little bit different. There are some tried and true things that will help you. And there's some words that are really big and some places where you want to play something really small.
Yeah.
And all of that adds up to the sum total. So I think that's a good one to sort of describe a little bit about who I am. Nice.
Love it. Well, Carey, thank you so much for your time. I'll definitely be tuning into your show. Where can my audience find you?
So you can certainly find me on my weekly show, Accelerate OC, and at accelerateoc.com. And you can certainly track me down on LinkedIn very easily.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. I'll be including the links on the show notes so my audience can find you and learn more about the amazing things that you're doing every day. Thank you so much again for your time.
Thanks, Junaid. Great to talk, and hope we do it again soon.
Absolutely. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode on Hacks and Hobbies. We absolutely appreciate your contribution. You can find additional notes on hacksandhobbies.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and tell them what you learned about our guest today.